Mayor.
We got it. We'll do it. At this time, I'd like to call the regular meeting for the town of Nashville, May 2nd, 2023 to order. At this time, would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Father, we invite you into our meeting tonight to lead and guide us, to help us to make the right decisions for every citizen in the town of Nashville. Amen. The first item on our agenda is we have some minutes to approve. So we have to approve the minutes for April 4, 2023, the regular meeting minutes. Did you find any corrections to those? If not, do I hear a motion that we approve?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The second set of minutes was for April 18th, 2023, the special call meeting minutes. Were there any corrections to those?
No correction, move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. The last set was April 25th, 2023, call meeting minutes. Any corrections to those?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. It is now time for our public comments. The first person on our, and remember you have 3 minutes, come up to the podium, state your name and your residence. The first person is Maureen Peacock.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Maureen Peacock. I live at 1108 Birchwood Drive here in Nashville. We're very excited about the town of Nashville and all the growth that we're seeing. One of the things that we're seeing a huge growth in is pickleball, which is why we're dressed to go play after this. And so what I wanted to tell you is that pickleball is such an exciting time because young and old, I play with people, I've seen people as young as 5 begin to play, as old as 75. And so we appreciate what's happening with that. We appreciate the 4 courts that are going to be built at Glover. We do see, though, that a need for even more. Right now, we head to Raleigh, Red Oak, Rocky Mount, and Wilson to play. We do have Tuesday and Thursday night. Thank you to the town for that as well. So I'm aware Nash Rec Club is selling those courts. There are 3 courts there that are in disrepair. They need a lot of repair, but there are materials that were purchased years back for that repair. And so what I would like to do is request for you to consider purchasing those courts for public use over at Birchwood and South Clarendon. There's 3 courts there. There's room for 12 to 15 cars to park there. It's in the grassy area. The parking lot is not for sale, but the grass area around the courts is part of that purchase. And I do have plenty of names. If you want me to submit these, I'm happy to do that. About 75 people that said, yes, we would love to have those courts. So thank you for your time, and if you want me to leave these with anyone, I'm happy to do so.
You can just give those to the
All right,
clerk.
thank you.
Thank you so much. The second person is Larry Cockrell.
I actually wasn't going to speak tonight, but Councilman Taylor twisted my arm.
State-
Update on the American of France. I took possession shortly after the council meeting in January.
State your residence.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
205 East Church Street.
Okay.
Anyway, I took possession shortly after the council meeting in January. It had no brakes when I pulled out of the maintenance yard. I drove it to the house with the service brake, the handbrake. It now has brakes. I can stop it. It has had a bath. The truck is so happy. Anytime I hook the batteries up, the red light starts flashing. I've got a short that I can't find yet. But we are making some progress on it. And it's doing well. The truck is happy. The truck now has a name. My neighbor, Mr. Gilbert, lives next door, says we gotta put a name on it. And when the graphic was there taking pictures for it, I explained who the people were on the plaque, Newton Gully and everybody. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, Newton always called me Josephine, picking on me at the hardware store and then take me over and get ice cream. So the truck is now named Josephine. So, and a friend of mine in Raleigh is gonna do a sterling silver script name, about 2-3 inches tall, about 4, 5, 6 inches long, and we're gonna hang it from the mirror. So that's the update on the 48.
Well, that's great. It sounds like Larry's happy and Josephine's happy.
There
The
you
truck's
go.
happy and everybody else is happy.
Okay,
Larry's
thank-
happy that
And
he's
I'm
got a
happy,
home.
I'm happy.
Thank you so much.
Will it be ready for the Blooming Festival next year?
Yeah, I told you
Well,
it might be.
I asked him,
Fingers crossed.
I asked him could he make it this year, but he said, no, it ain't good enough yet.
The next item on our agenda is our financial audit.
Oh, that was all pickleball crew.
Oh, well.
Pages 7, 8, and 9 is the independent auditor's report. It has grown this year. Our profession issued a new opinion.
Can you move her mic? I cannot hear that clearly.
Just push it to her.
Push it up closer, I think is what it needs.
Is that better?
Let's hear.
Go ahead.
It's better?
Yes.
Okay,
Some better. Yeah.
I'll try to be louder.
Yeah.
Okay. This year, our profession introduced a new independent auditor's report. It describes our responsibilities in quite a bit of detail, as well as yours. We audited your financial statements, and we've issued an unmodified or clean audit opinion in that we found the financials to be fairly stated and in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. I would like to note that we had no adjustments to the financial information provided to us. So that's a good situation to be in. We're required to be independent of this organization. That means we cannot have any financial arrangements with the town. Your responsibility is the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. Our responsibility is to test the financial statements using techniques that are defined in the opinion. And based on that testing, we render an audit opinion, the unmodified or clean opinion. There's schedules for your pension plans that are prepared by actuaries in the state auditor's office. We don't render an opinion on those schedules. We simply enter those data into the financial statements. There's also a management's discussion and analysis. We don't test that beyond testing mathematical amounts. Do they agree to the financial statements, basically? And that is not sufficient to be called an audit. So we don't render an opinion on that. There are supplemental schedules that we've tested that agree to the financial statements, and we've rendered an unmodified or clean opinion on those. And then the portion of the audit that's conducted under government auditing standards, we looked at the internal control over financial reporting and test of compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, and grant agreements. That's an unmodified or clean opinion in that we did not find any material weaknesses in your internal controls, significant deficiencies, or non-compliance material to the statements. If we look at page 22, it's the statement of net position. It's the full accrual statements. Your total assets were $26.2 million. Total deferred resources, $378,000. Total liabilities, $4.3 million. Total deferred inflows of resources, $99,000. And then the total net position was $22.1 million. The statement of activities on page 23. You spent $7 million on the primary government activities. On the business type, your water and sewer and stormwater fund, $5 million. So your total expenditures were $12.1 million. Your charges for services were $6.1 million. Most of that, $5.2 million, is generated by your utilities. Your operating grants was $701,000. In the business type activities, $348,000, so you had a little over $1 million in operating grants. On page 23, the total general revenues were $4.8 million. You had transfers of $1.8 million. The change in net position was $1.6 million, and that leads us to the net position at the end of the year of the $22 million. Page 24 is the balance sheet for the general fund and the capital project funds. Your general fund had a little over $6 million at the end of the year. $5.3 million was in cash. Total liabilities were $551,000. Total deferred inflows of resources, $224,000. Your total fund balances were $5.3 million. Your total liabilities, fund balances, and deferred inflows was a little over $6 million. Your unassigned fund balance, which is the number that's available for the council to use at its discretion, was $3.4 million. In your capital projects funds, you had assets of $2.1 million, most of which is cash. You owed $200,000, and you had total inflows of resources a little over $2,000. Your total fund balances were $1.9 million. Unassigned fund balances in your capital projects was $1.2 million. In the general fund, on page 25, you brought in total revenues of $6.5 million. You spent a little over $7 million. What is significant about this is $700,000 of your capital outlay of $960,000 was spent on a fire truck, and they're quite expensive when you have to buy one. Total other financing resources was a negative $115,000. The loss in this fund was $690,000, again because of the purchase of that fire truck, and that leaves you fund balances at the end of the year of $5.3 million. In the capital project fund, you brought in a little over $1 million. You spent $152,000 of that. You had other financing sources, a negative number of $70,500. Your total revenues and sources were $875,000, leading to total fund balances at the end of the year of $1.9 million. Page 27 will show you the budget to actual for the general fund. You will note that in the expenditure category, these are the same numbers, but there were no overages. So the way you adopted the budget and amended it was the way it was spent. Page 28 is the water and sewer fund. You had $1.2 million in current assets. Of that, about $900,000 was cash. Total assets were $7.6 million. The pension deferrals were $49,000. The total current liabilities, $425,000. Total non-current liabilities was $357,000. So the total liabilities were $783,000. Total deferred inflows of resources were $8,000, and that leaves you with $8.2 million in the water and sewer fund, most of which, $5.7 million, is in property. Total non-major funds that are related to your water and sewer funds, total assets were $1.6 million. The current liability is $272,000, and then the total net position was $1.3 million. Page 29 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and cash flows for the water and sewer fund and the non-major funds. You brought in $5 million in revenue. Expenditures were $3.5 million. You had operating income of $1.4 million. Non-operating revenue, $6.5 million. You had a transfer to other funds of $1.7 million. Your income after contributions and transfers, 321,000, and that ending fund balance of 8.2 million. The total non-major fund operating revenues was 130,000. You spent 483,000. There was a transfer of $1.3 million. Your net income or your change in net position was a little over $1 million, and that leaves you with a fund balance of $1.3 million. The cash flow statement is really as of June 30th, and what is significant is that the cash increased in the water and sewer fund, 296,000, and in the non-major fund, 879,000. The notes are very much the same as the prior year. Probably the one significant change relates to the pension plans. The pension plan liability has fallen. The reason that happened is, unfortunately, increased deaths in the United States, a reduction in life longevity of 2 years roughly, as well as probably some retirements of longtime employees and things like that. That's what influences the change in the pension plan. Page 43 and 44 will give you the details of your fixed assets. And then there's the long notes that explain what's going on with the pension plan in a technical sense, written from an actuarial standpoint. It's explaining what discount rates are used to determine what your assets and liabilities are related to the plans. With regard to your long-term debt, which is on page 56, you paid your principal and interest timely, so the debt went down. You have a legal debt margin of $35 million, so you have the ability to borrow money if needed. And then the budget to actual statements are all very positive. There aren't any overages, and that's what's significant with that. With the ad valorem taxes receivable, you were due $146,000 at the June 30th. Your collections were $2.6 million, and your collection rates, current levy collection percentage overall is 98.72%, property taxes 98.5%, and 100% for motor vehicles because of the change in the system and the methods that are in use now. You have to pay your taxes to get your car registration. One thing that I'm required to bring up is the lateness of the audit. 2 factors, your changes in staff and new software, as well as my loss of staff and just not having enough technical skill available to be able to get something out timely. And you will be asked to sign a statement to the LGC regarding that I discussed it with you. Okay, any questions?
Once again, can you refer us to the page that has unassigned fund balance?
Yes, ma'am, be happy to. Page 24. It's where it says balance sheet at the top, Exhibit 3.
And the unassigned fund balance was 3.4.
In the general fund, it was 3.4. In the capital project funds, your non-major governmental capital project funds, 1.2 million. The 3.4 is where you can use a certain percentage of it for discretionary spending.
Any other questions? If not, thank you so kindly.
Oh, thank you.
And we do have to have a vote to accept this financial report.
Move to accept the report.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is the tree board appointment.
So Mayor and Council, this evening we've had a resident step up that want to serve on the tree board. Lee McCullum, and he is here this evening. And he is alongside one of our other tree board members, Elaine Robertson. And the staff would like to present Lee McCullum to the council tonight for appointment to the tree board to finish out the remainder of 2023, and then for a 2-year appointment thereafter, taking that appointment through December of 2025.
And Lee, I'd like to thank you so kindly for being willing to serve on the tree board. Do I hear a motion that we approve this appointment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Welcome to the tree board. The next item on our agenda is the fire station. We are going to hold a public comment meeting on the use of $1,338,750 Community Project Fund grant for the construction of the fire station. So do I hear a motion that we go into this public committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, at this time, are there any people that would like to discuss the money being spent from the grant to construct our fire station?
Mayor, if I may, just take a minute and summarize. Most of you are aware the town of Nashville has been awarded $1,338,000 from former U.S. Congressman Butterfield, his Community Project Fund for Fire Station 2, which is proposed at 1200 East Washington Street, also known as Oak Level Road here in Nashville. The grant money is being administered by the USDA Rural Development Office, and the town is required to hold a public information meeting on the use of this money for this project. So the public comment meeting was scheduled for tonight at 7 p.m. As the notice was posted as required in the Nashville Graphic, now is the time and the place. If somebody would like to comment on the use of this money for this project, please, the podium is yours.
If no one has any comments, do I hear a motion that we come out of this public hearing concerning that?
So made.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, our next item on the agenda is Fire Station 2 to review and approve the final plans, specifications, and cost estimate for Fire Station 2. So who's going to,
This evening, we have Ann Collier with Oakley Collier Architects and Joe Klum, also from Oakley Collier, and they have a PowerPoint presentation for the council and the audience this evening on Fire Station 2's design.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm very glad to be here to present the plans for the fire station to you and where we are right now, and then answer any questions. Let me see if I can work this. I've just a brief update.
If it's not, turn the next page, just say next page.
Oh, next page.
Oh, okay. The old-fashioned way.
Oh, there you go. I can do
Ms.
that.
Collier, can you see, if you dim the lights a little bit, can you still see your notes?
Oh, yes, I can.
How about bringing it down, lights down a little bit, please? There you go.
Can that work?
Mhm.
Yes, I sure can. So where we are today is we have completed the full set of construction documents for the project. Joe Clemick is our project architect as well as myself on the project, so I wanted Joe to be here also. And he'll take a little bit of the presentation in a few moments. They have been completed and submitted to USDA for their review, for their, as Randy said, they're administering the project. So they have an oversight that we submit to for them. We have received some partial comments back, and we're in the middle of responding to those now. We also have issued a pre-qualification for general contractors just as of last week. We believe we will have very good response for that. We actually advertised in the Rocky Mountain Telegram, the Greater Diversity newspaper, and on the town website for that. So for the process for that will not be receiving a price, but receiving qualifications from contractors who would like to bid on the project. And so that process is happening over the next 2 weeks. When we receive those in, there'll be a team that reviews to ensure the contractors that are submitting are qualified to do the work. At that point, then the contractors, when they are selected or approved as pre-qualified contractors, they will be issued the set of plans to bid pricing for it. And so tentatively, that date is, for the actual bid, is set at June 8th, based on what's happening right now. So I would say we submitted as an office, we keep a list of contractors that are local and in this area that bid a lot of our work. We did issue that pre-qualification advertisement to 13 contractors that are in the eastern region, just to ensure lots of competitive bidding and good pricing for that. And we have lots of interest and have been called by several about that. Next slide. So I want to go into the project a little bit, starting with where we started. So where we started when we were here back before you in the early fall was going through options of sizes and budgets for the program. We selected option 2, which was the moderate program. It met the needs. It gave the fire department and the fire station, met all the needs that they required. Was about 9,500 square feet, and we had a project budget estimate at that time of $4,116,000, including soft costs. That construction portion with the site work was about $3.3 million, based on 2 acres of site development. That cost, back in the early fall, was determined by general contractor input. We did some research about local bids at that time and felt comfortable with that number. So that's where we were back in the fall. So next slide, please. This is a picture of the plan. You'll see, we've shown this to you before, but this is how it laid out, and just wanted to show you this so you'll see we haven't deviated very far from that at all in the final plan. So you can move on as well. And this is the look that we all decided we liked the most for that. So moving on to where we are, to the next slide. Currently, again, the site plan has been fully developed. It is, the total property is 4.5 acres. We still require just about 2 acres. We have the drives all the way around with parking. We're proposing a concrete pad for truck movement because it's a heavy vehicle, and so that is heavy-duty paving in and around the bays. There's stormwater retention required. We have about 20 designated parking spaces, but there's additional area in the rear that's gravelled off for other parking as needed, for some overflow. And then there's also, into the plans right now, we planned a future expansion bay, and that is listed in our plans as an alternate right now. So that is not part of our base bid, but an alternate bid, so we'll see what that costs when it comes in on bid day. And we have worked very well with the fire department and staff over the last 8 months to develop all of this and get their input. Several meetings, even one where you turned every page of the drawings, as boring as that might be for some folks, but it's very helpful for us. Move on to the next slide. I'm going to let Joe take over. This is his handiwork, and he can describe to you what's now, what the plans are about.
Sure. Yeah, good evening, council members. I'm Joe Klimek, architect here with OCA and Ann. And yeah, our team, I'll just take you through our moderate program that we designed for the firehouse. And we worked pretty heavily, as Ann said, with Chris Joyner and the fire department team to come up with something that would work for them. But we also had our budget heavily in mind to try to keep this as economical as we possibly could. So if you look up on the plan, on the left side, our fire department's divided into generally 3 spaces. On the left side, you have the truck bays. They're full drive-through truck bays, so they can pull in through the back and exit through the front for a fast. Oh, okay. How do you? Okay. Yeah, here we go. All right, at least that works. Yeah. So this is the front of the front, the right side, the rear, and the left side. Right over here are the bays. We consider these hot zones. These are the areas where the most contamination to the apparatus and the firefighters will get when they work out in their field and come back. Separating the truck bays, which are 2 full drive-through truck bays, so they can park a full ladder truck and even get a smaller vehicle, EMS or a smaller truck in the back as well. Separating the truck, which is the hot zone, from the cool zone, which is the right side, where you would have the back, which is divided into 2 sections. So you have the back section where they would stay and live while they're on duty, and then the front section, which is the more public section, and it has a couple of office spaces, a training and assembly room that will be used by the fire department on the regular. But it can also be used for civic functions by the community if needing a spot for that. A couple of public bathrooms. And then the rear section of that, where their living quarters are, is divided into 4 dorm bedrooms that each house 3 beds in them each. So that gives you, you can have a total of 4 with their each with their own beds. We've also incorporated into this a little expansion for staff, where this exercise room in the middle could possibly be divided into 2 other bedrooms as well. That would house another 6 bedrooms if staffing was needed ever to expand in that capacity. And then you have a day room and a kitchen back here that opens up to an outside patio that gives them a little space to live in. And then separating those 2 spaces, you have this warm area where it houses equipment locker room, a decon room that's used to clean all of the equipment. There's with as least contamination into the living spaces and the cold living spaces as possible. And then a couple of you have a workshop room and then a base storage room as well for more tool and equipment use and storage. And then these 2 airlocked corridors right here with a door to the bay and also a door to the corridor inside the living space is used to try to purify and keep as much clean the air that would possibly flow in from the bays and keep the right side where they'll be living as clean as possible and for their safety and their health. Yeah, so that's generally the basic layout. And then you can see here the dash of what we were showing to be a possible alternate if ever budget allowed it for. And we're also planning this bay so that if it comes that the budget only allows for 2 bays, but in the future you could do 3 bays, you could open up this wall and this pre-engineered metal building could just add another row to expand. In that case, they might need to add a couple more bedrooms, so it gives you the ability to expand with relatively little effort in the future, if necessary.
Thanks, Joe. Some of the features we did settle at the beginning, we were exploring types of construction, and we settled with a hybrid type of construction. So the bay area is done out of pre-engineered metal building frame, some of those components, and then the living side is done with a stick-built construction like here. So it's a hybrid because we felt like that would be the most economical construction for that. We are fully sprinkled. There's a lot of code implications. If we are definitely required to sprinkle at least the sleeping quarters, and if that's the only space, there are a lot of code implications that require much more detailing and wrapping trusses and things that get very complicated. So we determined it was most economical or the best interest of the town to fully sprinkle the whole building, which is just a straight number across the board and makes the most sense for the future and the size of the building itself too. So we are a combination of cementitious siding, hardy panel siding that you may hear of in the industry, and brick on the outside, and some pre-engineered metal skin on the bay area. So that is our floor plan, and we've got a couple updated renderings for you. If you want to do the next slide. So you've gone a little bit step further than we were in the beginning, but it's basically the same layout and the same materials. And I think there's a couple more for next slide. So we are matching the doors to the existing fire station for this facility as well, and then one on the back. So very livable, very residential in nature. Trying to just keep in mind where we are for that. So that brings us to the next slide, which is where we are in a budget. And we are seeing increases in budget. So that's what I really wanted to talk to you about tonight. We have seen since the beginning a pretty substantial increase, which is we are reflecting here. So right now, we are looking at our total project budget estimate of $4.966 million with a construction of $4.2. That's about a 25%-ish increase. And I want to tell you how I got there, because I am not the one who is going to build it. So I am just purely using data to get to this number. Our building size did increase slightly from a structural standpoint. When the pre-engineered building folks came in and we started really putting the columns in place and the clearances with that and the size of the columns, to get the size of the truck bays to be right, we had to expand the bay just a little. And that's really where the extra square footage comes in, is from that structural layout with the actual pre-engineered facility piece. I have done a lot of research on the costs, and so we collect numbers all the time from bids, and so I've used 5 different bids that have happened over the since the beginning of the year, really as early, or as one from last October, but the rest are March and April of this year, and they are all ranging between $400 and $486 a square foot, and so that is current market. There's a lot of reasons we're being told for that. There are still labor shortages all over for the subcontractor market. There's still a lot of material supply and demands and lead times with that. Transportation costs are also in there. And then just, I think, some general market uncertainty. Some of the things we get told by our contractors that bid are their subcontractors will hold a bid for 7 days, maybe 3 days, maybe 2 weeks if they're lucky. So there's a little uncertainty when we are asking our contractors to hold their bid for 60 days and they get a price in that's only held for a week. There's some markup, I think, for that, just to make sure they can honor their bid. So that's where we came to the conclusion that we felt $425 a square foot is the number that we're seeing right now. We do, I think some advantages that we have is we have very good interest in this project. Again, I've had contractors calling me over the last several months asking, when is the fire station going to bid? When is the fire station going to bid? And they're local contractors, and they're very interested in it, and I think that's a big help for us on that. Again, I'm gathering data, and I want to have realistic numbers for you. I don't want to tell you something that was 9 months ago that's not going to happen in another month or so. So that's where we are. I think to say, as I said, the proof is in the pudding. We will know on bid day what this project costs. We have not designed anything differently than we would design in the situation where we started. So we haven't, there's very simple finishes. Again, there's nothing really that's fancy or fluffy to this project. It's very straightforward, again, meets the needs of the fire department. And then, so the next slide is the last one, and that's the next steps. So again, we are in the process of pre-qualification of the general contractors, and we should know what that looks like on or around May 11th. I think May 11th they're due, so May 12th, sometime in there, we will meet to review that. And then ready to release bid documents immediately after, if you allow us to. With that date of releasing documents on May 15th, June 8th would be the available bid date for that release. We give 30 days generally in there. And then that would put a contract approval by the town council on June 20th. There is no, bidding the project obligates you to nothing. I mean, that shows you a price. Other than, I will say, we will give the contractors 60 days or ask them to hold their bid for 60 days. So there's that decision-making process of whether you move forward or not would need to happen in that 60 days. Because at the end of that, then the price could change again. And then, so if that approval is on June 20th, then it looks like a good construction start could be in July of this year. And we're estimating about 10 months, so we set it around April of '24. So that, I would love to answer any questions for you.
Are we looking at 9,500 square feet or 10,000?
The plan as it stands today is right under 10,000. And that, there's not spaces in the plan that grew substantially. It really is, most of that is in the Bay Area to get the structure in place. The structure is turned and there's some additional area there.
That's an additional $857,000 from what we had projected.
It is not all based on that square footage. The cost rose as well on per square foot. There is additional cost though in square footage.
We started out at 1.3 million, and now we're at 5 million.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID,
Yeah.
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 Pre-COVID cost everybody. I've been on the council for 14 years, and we've talked about this fire station for 14 years. And if we'd have built this thing way back when I was on the fire department, it would probably cost us $1 million. But now the town has procrastinated, and we're in a position right now where we've got to have another fire station. And I don't think we need to wait any longer. We just gonna have to bite this bullet and move forward. And if you want to start turning some dirt tomorrow, I'll bring my shovel out and start working. So I don't like the cost, but it's the cost of doing business, and protecting the stuff we got in town.
Do you have any other questions for her?
Well, just in your description of the 25% increase, you said that right now, the ones that you had looked at over the last few months were $400 to $486 per square foot. And then you also thought that it was possible that they were marking up a bit just to make sure that they could deliver what they're promising, since it's the whole 60-day hold. So potentially, it might not go as high as what you're projecting here.
There's always that potential.
Hopefully.
With
We
the
are
more
hopeful.
competitive bids we've got,
Right.
it works on our favor.
Right. The more bids, and I really do feel very good about the interest that I've heard. I think there's very competitive pricing right here locally, and if someone wants to do the job and do it and stay right here in Nashville, that's a big plus for folks. Not all the folks. We when we sent the pre-qualification out, we picked contractors that we knew would handle the project, that had bid our work before, and so we just wanted to gather some of that for this project. So
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
thank you all.
Appreciate it. At this time, do I hear a motion that we approve these final plans and specifications and cost estimate for Fire Station 2?
So made.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Mayor, one other thing. We only scheduled one regular council meeting for June, and we have the bids coming back. Is it okay to schedule a second council meeting for the month of June, which would be June 20th?
I am out of town, but that doesn't mean you can't schedule it.
Well,
Just-
and we don't have to decide that here this evening.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Just look at a date and get back with us. That'd be
Okay.
great. The next item on our agenda is Fire Station number 2, the annexation.
So as you know, the site for Fire Station 2 is out on Oak Level Road or Washington Street, East Washington Street. It's a 4.5 acre site that was created for this project. About 1.7 acres of that site currently is not in town limits. So the owner of the property, and again, as you know, we're leasing property on a long-term lease to build this. The owner of the property is 3MR Limited Partnership, and they've applied for annexation of the 1.7 acres of the site that currently isn't in town limits. So at the last meeting, the clerk was directed to determine the sufficiency of that annexation petition. That has been done. It's in the packet behind the agenda report. And the town staff has taken the liberty to go ahead and schedule a public hearing on the annexation of this 1.7 acres for this evening. It was advertised in the Nashville Graphic as required, and at this time, I would ask the mayor to open a public hearing on the annexation of this property into the town of Nashville.
Do I hear a motion for us to go into a public hearing on? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Motion carries.
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, when we send out rezonings or annexations and all this stuff, we notify all the surrounding owners,
Are we abutting
all
property
the abutting
owners?
property
Yes.
owners, and normally we have a signature sheet that said everybody had signed. Did we not have one for that? Or did I overlook it?
There was only one owner for each of the properties.
That's right.
So
it's
it
long.
was Meredith Sawyer, so she's the only person that wanted to be annexed.
Okay, no problem. Just want to make sure y'all notified.
And all the neighbors were notified, and I have spoken to several people come in, just asking questions about it.
What about the residents in Woodfield? Were they all notified?
Everybody that has an abutting property was notified. So if their property comes up to it.
Okay.
And as from what I understand, that is not required, but it is something that the town of Nashville does do.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the pre-love.
We got,
There's an annexation ordinance.
Oh, yes.
After you close the public hearing, then you can,
And you see that on,
99 of the packet, no, 98.
98.
on page 98, the ordinance. Do we need to read that, do you think? I think you've already had it in your agenda, and it gets placed online for the citizens.
Since we had no comments from the citizens, I think we can overlook that.
So do I hear a motion?
Motion to go ahead and approve this.
There's, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Okay. Now we'll move on to our next item, which is the Breelove Road subdivision annexation. And we've talked about this before, but Randy, do you want to say anything about this before we go into the public hearing?
sure. Marv Sheeran owns the Red Oak Development LLC, and he owns 63 acres off of Breedlove Road that he's petitioned to annex into the town of Nashville. At the last council meeting, the clerk was directed to determine the sufficiency of that annexation petition, which has been done, and it's on the back of the agenda report. So the staff took the liberty of scheduling a public hearing on the annexation of this 63 acres into town. It was published in the Nashville Graphic, and now is the time for that public hearing.
Do I hear a motion that we go into public hearing for the Breelove Road subdivision annexation?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? If not, do I hear a motion that we come out of our public hearing?
So made.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
So do I hear a motion that we approve ordinance 2023-10 annexing this property into the town of Nashville?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is Junction parking lot and stage. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Lansing.
I'm going to defer to Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering. I believe Randy included in your packets the plans that we have for the Nashville Junction. Very straightforward. We did not add any bells and whistles to the project. And ultimately, we are ready to bid that project out, and we will be looking for advertisement and receiving those back around the same time frame as the fire station. But we had planned to bring those to the council the first meeting in July. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Budget-wise, I'm not even gonna try. Right now, at the end of the day, the prices have increased, obviously, and we will have the opportunity to strip as much out of the project as we need to get it done, including removing the asphalt from the surface, if so be it. So we'll have that opportunity when the bids come back to review those unit prices and remove as many items as we possibly can to try to get back to within the budget that you guys have.
So we're gonna try to stay within the 640,000.
We are going to try. And we'll have opportunity to try to do that. So,
When you came before us before, what we were about 40,000 over.
that's right. And I still think we're there. Our issue is we do not have a lot of interest on the site side. The building contractors do tend to have a little more interest in buildings. I think we just have a limited resource in our number of interested site contractors. So we'll have to do a really good job. I would suggest potentially stretching that advertisement out to try to get more bidders to bid on it. And that's why we're trying to push out into July, just to see if we can get a little bit more interest or maybe stretch out into further market. So we're trying our best just to get as many contractors as we can to bid it. Obviously, that drives competition and lowers the price.
For a cost standpoint for the town, what our interest into it, I've always said that I wasn't fully sold on a permanent stage as of yet, and that would save us a little bit of money too if we just put up a temporary stage, something that we can roll in when we need it, take it out when we don't.
That's
and,
right.
And see how it works with the surrounding community, and then after a period of time, if we don't have any flashback from neighbors and other people, then we could, at a later date, look at putting in a permanent stage, ones like the one have in Red Oak.
That's right.
But right now, I'm not for the permanent stage in there, but I am for the rest of, moving forward on the rest of it.
The stage that was presented to us was about 70,000. Do you recall that, Randy? The picture that you gave us?
Well, that's what the one in Dorchester cost, approximately.
But that's right. And we would try to be similar to that. It'll be a line item in the bid that we can easily strike out, remove, or we can choose what we would like to do with that line item once we get it. We're actually going to bid the stage separate and then the structure on top as a separate piece as well.
Okay.
So that way we can still have the elevated stage if we like, but not have the structure on the roof on top, or vice versa. I mean, we can do we'll have a lot more flexibility than you would. A building, you have to build most of the components. Here, we can choose bits and pieces and add things as we need to.
Were these, I'm assuming Michael Hurt's seen all of these and approved?
He has seen the plans. He had a few comments today. I responded back. We'll address some, most of it has to do with how it ties into his existing building. He's already built a little patio and some other things. Our plans don't quite reflect what he's doing continually, but ultimately what we'll do is whenever we get ready, we'll meet with him and match up to what he's got there. What we show will be nice and clean, and we'll kind of level some things out that aren't quite level, but we'll discuss that with him when it's time on site. But yes, I think ultimately the plans in general he's okay with.
Okay. And then, in reading through these, I just can't remember, are we doing something on that property line as far as sound, where the neighbor has a home?
With this project, this bid right now, the answer is no, we're not doing anything in the bid. If we want to come back and add a fence, do landscape and things like that, those are things we can come back and do.
Okay,
But the bid itself is really just for the parking lot.
okay,
And again, we can come back and add those items if we want to do that.
Okay.
That's something that the Parks and Rec Department can easily handle, or, through town staff. Not something we really need a contractor to plant trees or put up a fence.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so
Thank you.
kindly. If not, do I hear a motion to approve the plans and specifications for the Nashville Junction parking lot and stage project?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
No, based on the stage only.
motion carries. The next item on our agenda is panhandling ordinance.
So Mayor and Council, as you know, the Nashville Police Department has asked the council for some help in addressing a problem, a situation that is arising more and more frequently, and that's the panhandling in town streets. So we worked with, staff worked with our attorney and came up with a draft panhandling ordinance, and it's in the packet for consideration tonight. What it does is it prohibits a person from soliciting alms, panhandling, or begging for charity upon streets within the town and upon town-owned property within the town limits. And it does allow for the permitting of a panhandling permit, and those procedures are in the ordinance also. And this was an ordinance that was drafted by Emily with our attorney's firm, and I believe our police department has looked at it. When I talked with Chief Winstead, he was thumbs up for it. So I'd like to present it to the council tonight for consideration and adoption.
And it's in our agenda packet, and I'm sure you've had time to read it. Are there any questions?
And Randy, we already have an ordinance for people going door to door. You're supposed to get a permit to go door to door peddling in town.
Correct.
We already have that already.
Yes.
I wasn't aware that we had a problem with people on the street.
Outside of Walmart.
Panhandling.
Yeah.
and-
Maybe Chief Winstead would enlighten or inform the council on what they're up against.
Please do.
Hey, y'all this evening.
Good.
Oh, Chief.
So, as y'all know, everybody, different people come in from different places in town, different other municipalities and stuff. Lately, we've had around the Zaxby's areas and other places, people panhandling for money, signs up, homeless, would work for food or money. Same thing around the food line in Walmart area. And so, you know, we really have no grit to charge them with something other than, because they're not going door to door as salesmen. They're actually just sitting there pleading on somebody simply to give them something, when 9 times out of 10, it's just because they're too lazy to go to work. So we like to have some type of ordinance in there where we can actually do something with them.
Thank you. Any questions concerning this ordinance?
I had a few.
Okay.
Just where we talk about someone having to come to the town manager and fill out an application, they have to give their name. And then we say if they give any false information that we can kind of charge them with things. But can we require that they give identification in here so we can actually prove that who they say they are is who they are?
The town, the town is entirely within its rights to impose reasonable regulations. In my view, requiring identification, including some backup information, is entirely reasonable.
Okay, great.
Panhandling or begging cannot be prohibited as a matter of law, but the town can have a permitting requirement and can have reasonable regulations as to what
Okay.
all that. U.S. Supreme Court many, many years ago said it's not a crime to be poor and to be begging for money in public, so that's the reality of the town's doing.
So we can't stop them from begging, but we got to make them register to beg.
And you have conditions and rules
Right.
associated with what they can and can't do.
So I would add to section B that they have to give some form of identification that matches up with what they're writing. And then section E, I know what the intent is. It says, this section shall not apply to events conducted on town-owned property that have previously been approved by town council. But by saying it that way, we're saying that panhandling is okay at town events. Section E. So if we could just swap the language in there.
Chief, in the past, are we telling the people that we catch you doing it, just tell them to move on?
Yes, sir. Since they're being in the parking lots and they're harassing people, that's kind
We
of
tell
the
them to move on.
basis that we've gathered it on, so.
Have we had any pushback from any
Not
one
really
person?
pushback. We've had the same individuals come back 4 or 5 times. After, it goes by a week and they think that we're still not paying attention.
Okay.
They'll come
The
back.
same person comes back?
Yes, sir.
So I was just thinking if we could change it to any solicitation of alms or charity previously approved by the town council for events conducted on town-owned property shall not be subject to this section. Something like that, so that we're not saying it doesn't apply at all, because by saying section E the way that it is, we're saying you can panhandle at town events on town property.
I understand your point, Ms. Burns, and I think it's well taken. I didn't work on this ordinance personally. In my view, I see where there's potential for confusion there, and just to clarify that that panhandling or begging is not going, having obtained a permit does not authorize one to panhandle or to beg for money at town events on town-owned property.
Well, I think what was attempting to happen there is if we approve some event that's like a charitable event where we're allowing someone to ask for money, that this section doesn't apply to them. I think that's what we're trying to say in this section. I think.
My reading of it is that if you have secured a town permit, that does not give you a pass to actually solicit at town events on town-owned property. That's my reading of it, but the fact
But
that.
you'd have to renew that application every time, right? Or would you?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a limit on, if somebody is granted a permit, a length of time in which it's good for.
Absolutely.
But the only thing I can think we would grant one for, and I haven't seen one in quite a while, a lot of times fire departments may have fundraisers, and you have firemen in the middle of an intersection with firemen's boots taking funds from the public as they come through. That's the only type of panhandling I think we.
Well, that's why
Really
I wanted
really
to say
should allow.
something that, like, if we have already approved something, so
Yeah.
if someone comes to us and says we're going to be, as the fire department, looking for donations to do something for our volunteers, we're approving that, and so this section does not apply to them. So just to reword section E to state that any solicitation of alms or charity previously approved by the town council for events conducted on town-owned property or even public property shall not be subject to this section, so that they can do something like that if we approve it prior to.
Well, I'm not willing to approve anybody except for fire department.
See what you're saying.
Okay. And then with penalties, for the first offense, imprisonment for a period of up to 7 days.
I had I didn't write none of that.
You didn't have
Seems
any-
a little-
I deferred to ask someone else to do it, so.
I would think first offense, if someone doesn't
Well,
know.
it's only going to trump up to a misdemeanor anyway.
Right.
Right.
It's no different than a traffic citation at some point in time, so.
Yeah. I guess first offense, I just thought a little bit lower of,
Some other municipalities charge $200 to $500 for the first offense, and then sequential events are.
right. And yeah, once you know the rule and you come back again, I'm all for whatever penalties need to happen. But that was just something I wanted to bring up.
And none of that precludes a warning
Okay.
in advance. There is some discretion, obviously,
Okay.
with the police department in that respect.
And we can always go back and amend this if it doesn't work out for us.
And if there is a citation that goes to court, you're at the mercy of the judge for whatever penalty they levy,
Those are my
despite
only
what your
comments.
ordinance says.
So do I hear a motion that we adopt the ordinance 2023-13, amending chapter 24, the offenses and miscellaneous provisions of the Nashville Code Ordinance with a new section 24-13, entitled Soliciting of Alms, with the changes that were suggested?
So moved.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is engineering contracts to review Matt Gay and Associates for the completion of the town's water and sewer asset inventory.
So, Mayor and Council, if you will recall, in the fall funding round for the Clean Water Reserve Fund through NCDEQ, we finally were awarded funding for an asset inventory assessment grant, $150,000 for water and $150,000 for sewer. The council had previously, striking out twice at getting this prior, entered into a contract with Matt Gay and Associates to begin the asset inventory assessment, knowing we had our ARPA money that we had a time limit on spending, and we had a number of infrastructure improvements in water and sewer that we needed help prioritizing, hence the asset inventory assessment. So we got started with that. Now that the grant funds were awarded, I've asked Matt Gay and Associates for another contract to finish the asset inventory assessments, and for a contract, we also got a grant to study rehabilitation options for our sewer outfall line that follows Stony Creek all the way to Old Carriage Road, where then it becomes Rocky Mount's line. That line is almost 40 years old, and we know we have some issues with it, and we wanted to be able to take a good hard look at what are the rehabilitation options for that. So we got a study grant for that. So in the packet tonight are 3 contracts with Matt Gay and Associates. The first one's for $150,000 to finish the asset inventory assessment on our water system. The second one is for $150,000 to finish the asset inventory assessment on our sanitary sewer system. And the third one is a $85,000 contract to study the rehabilitation options for the Stony Creek sewer fallout line. And this is all grant money. There's no local match with this. And then this should help us finish, actually it will finish and complete our asset inventory assessments.
That'd be great. Any questions for Randy concerning this?
Being no match, I move to move forward.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is CMA, the sidewalk project.
So Mayor and Council, if you recall, back in 2018, the town was awarded $411,000 in CMAQ money. That's federal DOT money. CMAQ stands for Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality. And these funds are, to construct alternative modes of transportation that help reduce carbon emissions and improve air quality, i.e. sidewalks and trails. We had been awarded that to do 2 sidewalks on First Street, one going from Washington north to the Highway 64 bridge, and then one going south that would start at Glover Park Memorial Drive and go down to South Creek. That would finish the sidewalk along First Street or Highway 58 that stops at Glover Park, past the middle school down to South Creek. So fast forward, none of the grant money was available in DOT budgets for until 2022. When we got notice that the money was available, we had to go through a selection process to select an engineer to engineer this, which we did. We came up with Randy Kemp and Associates as our engineer for this project. They estimated the project and its cost was significantly more than what was projected in 2018 when this was funded. So much more that even just doing the south portion of that greatly exceeded the $411,000 plus the $102,000 match that the town needed to put with that to get to that $514,000 for a total project cost. Right now, just the second or the south portion of that sidewalk with engineering fees is estimated at $728,000. And I did ask the Rocky Mountain NPO if there was an opportunity to get additional CMAQ money. Jordan Reedy with the NPO said yes, and he found additional money for us that would help us get this, but it comes, again, with a 20% match. So that puts our total match up to $164,000 on that $726,000 project. We don't have it right now. And, going through our budget process for FY '24, we won't have it in the upcoming fiscal year. So I was prepared tonight to recommend to the council that we forego the CMAQ money, the $102,000 that we pledged for this. We have spent that on sidewalk improvements that we did this fiscal year and some other street projects, and it's not available. But as you know, we still have quite a few sidewalks existing now that we are still in need of repair to do, and it's difficult to take on the cost of brand-new sidewalk in an area that doesn't have it without fixing our existing sidewalk first. Anyway, I reached out to Jordan Reedy today about that. Actually, it was yesterday. He said there is a bill presented in the North Carolina legislature right now that would take the CMAQ money that's along a state route, which our First Street is, or Highway 58, and provide the local match for the local jurisdiction to do it. If that passes in this legislative session, we will have an opportunity to do this project without any local match. So I'm not going to give the council my recommendation to forego these funds at this time. Let's allow the legislature to complete its work. Hopefully that bill, which I don't know if it's a Senate bill or a House file, I'll find that out. But let's allow our legislators to do what they do, and hopefully this bill will pass, and we may have the opportunity to do this sidewalk after all, at no cost to the town.
How much are we into the Kent Ramsey Association so far for engineering?
We're not. We had asked them for a proposal. We selected them, and then the process is, that Minnie Brooks selection process. You ask for statements of qualifications. They were the most qualified. So then you negotiate a contract with them. So they gave us their price for what they would charge us to design and oversee the construction of that sidewalk. Obviously, we didn't have that money. It was more than the grant itself. That was $426,000. The grant we had was $411,000. So we didn't go any further negotiating a contract with them.
Okay, so we're not
So
under
they're
contract.
still waiting for us to negotiate with them. If we get the funding, all of it, we can re-engage them in that negotiation.
Let them
So
keep waiting.
we haven't spent any money on it yet,
Yeah.
other than Sherry's time to deal with all this.
Now-
So,
oh, sorry, go
excuse
ahead.
me, go ahead.
If this bill does not go forward, and we were to try to do it on our own, to do the sidewalk, do you have an approximate cost of what it would be if we didn't take the grant funding and 5 years from now decided to do the sidewalk?
I don't have a number. I foresee it would be considerably less. These are federal DOT funds, and they come with a whole host of additional things that you have to do. There's prevailing wages that have to be paid on a Davis-Bacon Act. We have to do archaeological and historic surveys. We have to, well, we would anyway, detailed surveying to make sure that where you're going to build your sidewalk is in the right-of-way of the DOT. And it all drives up that engineering cost because of all these additional things that have to be done.
So it would probably be best if we just have a motion to table this until we see what happens.
I move the table.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on to our new business. The first item on our agenda is the Environmental Enhancement Grant, and Coey couldn't be with us tonight, so Randy, you're going to speak to this on his
You bet.
behalf?
Park and Rec Department, along with Tammy Riedel, who is with us this evening. She's with the North Carolina Wildlife and Outdoor Recreation Foundation. We have a memorandum of understanding with that organization to help us find funding for recreational projects. This is one, the EEG grant. It's the Attorney General's Environmental Enhancement Grant. We have applied for this in the past. What we're proposing to do with the help of the Wildlife Outdoor Recreation Foundation is make another application for 48 acres that lies close to Stony Creek Environmental Park. It's owned by McLaughlin from Zebulon, and well, he's got GSM Properties LLC, and you know, the price of that land is $222,930 for that 43 acres. And with Tammy's help, we were going to reach out to his realtor and make application for this while the application is being considered to see if he would be willing to have an appraisal on the property, sell it at a discounted rate, which would give him tax credits on his investments, and then take the difference between the market value and the sale value and give that to the town for local match for acquiring this project funding for the EEG grant. So Tammy, did you have some words you'd like to add to this discussion, if you would, please? Hate to have you come all the way to a meeting and not speak.
I was okay with not speaking. So, this particular one he's speaking of for the first EEG grant is for the land acquisition. And the sole purpose of acquiring that property is because there's roughly about 19 species of special, of greatest conservation need on that creek bed. And the conservation value that comes from, you know, having that property so that we can manage it is astronomical. It has a huge economic impact, not only on the area, but also on the ecosystem itself. Now, we applied for the grant for $220,000, hoping that that would cover closing costs. So we are requesting for a reduction of the sale price. We have not gotten any word back as of current, and Coy and I are going back and forth discussing that. Do y'all have any questions about the property? It is contiguous to the properties that you already
Okay,
own.
so it connects everything.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's
It
all
would-
wetland, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It's all wetland. We can't use it for nothing except for environmental stuff.
Correct.
And Randy, you said it was 43, it's actually 48 acres.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right, 48.
Now, with that area, though, we are allowed to do like primitive trails through there, something to connect the one side of Stony Creek to the other.
That's our goal,
okay.
is that we would try to do passive trails to help, you know, at least keep the public off of the sensitive areas, but still give them potentially connectivity. And with an overall goal of eventually connecting this area to the Rocky Mount area and having one long greenway. So that's, you know, that's like a in the future goal, but it's there, so.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming.
Well, we have the next one too, Tammy. So the other request is for an EEG grant that would get us money to help remove invasive species from town-owned property along Stony Creek. If you will recall, when Marguerite was here, we got a grant to do some invasive species removal of the property between the Stony Creek Bridge and the courthouse parking lot where we have the trail. But there's a lot more out there, and unfortunately, it does come back. Tammy, do you have anything to add to that? That would be an application for $149,000.
So the goal with this one is, even if the other one doesn't come through, we can at least start some processes. And in that, we want to remove all of the invasive plant species that are currently in the riparian buffer area and replace them with native plants. And a goal in doing this, if you use the native plants that have the massive root systems, they actually aid in absorbing of the water and the, you know, that would help mitigate the flooding issues that we're having. I'm not gonna say it's gonna remedy it all, but it will at least help reduce the impact of it. When, and then we've got other things that we're discussing to try to help mitigate the flooding areas in the town of Nashville and also over around the, I think you said Indian Creek. Did I say it right? In that area.
Indian Trail.
Indian Trail, thank you, I'm sorry about that. And the goal is just to really build up the riparian buffer and the wetland conservation areas with more native species and getting the invasive ones out. And really the biggest ask on the town is going to be the little bit of staff. One of the goals that we also have is partnering with North Carolina Wesleyan and also Nash Community for their environmental science programs and getting the students out there to assist with doing the projects. So
That'd be great.
And their involvement counts as in-kind local match, so no cash needed to be contributed to this $149,000 application if it's awarded.
That's great. Thank you so much. So we need to approve Resolution 2023-19 for the land acquisition and 2023-20 for the buffer. So do I hear, can we approve those together? I think so. Is there a second? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That's exciting. The next item on our agenda is the townhouse ordinance. Sherry, there you are. I couldn't see you for the post.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council.
Good evening.
So I'm here before you tonight, bringing you the townhouse, or a draft of the townhouse ordinance. We're amending it from sections 18-109 and 18-111. So the planning board and the town staff, we've been extensive work sessions, public hearings, trying to get this thing together, because currently now the townhouse development, they use a site-specific requirements from plan unit developments. So I felt that that townhomes, they need their own specific regulations. Townhomes are currently allowed in the town of Nashville in its specific zoning districts, but we're requesting that they be added to the R4 high-density residential zoning district, as well as adding site-specific regulations. And we went through the work session, and I do have in your packet, you do have the revised copy from what I've sent out to you all. I did get some revisions back, and I will briefly go through those. The first one being on page 165, number 2. It was requested that the units per acre be added back in there, but the wording was, just a little different. And that would be not exceeding 13 units per acre. And that way it will give more common space or open space for larger townhouse developments. And also number 10 on page 166, at the end of the sentence, for townhouses with garages, adding all of which are subject to town council approval. That was at the very last sentence. Number 11, for detached accessory structures, we added it was suggested that and must follow the owners association standards. Number 12, parking. I've added a minimum, because at first it just had shall be 2 per dwelling unit, but we added a minimum in there. And going down to 13G, we added G for developments with 10 or more townhomes. A traffic study is required. That was another suggestion. And 15, fire safety for B. I did correct that, and I did speak with Chief Joyner. Each dwelling shall be within 300 feet of a fire hydrant. Is that correct? 600 feet, okay. And
So that should be 600?
600.
So 300?
600. And on page 167, under 23C, it was 1, 2, and 3 up under C. that went back to its original state to be in that one paragraph. Yes. Okay. 600 feet.
Okay, so the way that it's written, each dwelling
Okay.
shall be within 300 feet of a
That's
fire
correct.
hydrant is correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
All right, and on page 168, we added H, uniformity. That was suggested to be added in there. That would take care of the covenants and restrictions must address design standards of roofs and their replacements, maintenance of exterior facades, accessory structures, and the like in order to maintain a minimum, uniform look of townhouses, because that's when we were talking about that you didn't want the different roof colors and all that sort. And number 24, so the paper that you have, we're doing away with the waivers, variances, and revising and replacing that with special conditions. And it shall read, the town council may proceed, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. It shall read, special conditions. The town council may impose special conditions on the approval of a special use permit where it determines that such conditions, 1, are necessary and appropriate to fulfill the intent of this article, 2, are not detrimental to the development or surrounding area, and 3, achieve a more desirable result. And those are all the revisions that I have for this ordinance.
Mayor, I believe our attorney has some
Yes.
comments on this.
Thank you, Randy. Mayor, members of the council, I believe the memo that I prepared was handed up, and I think that summarizes the thinking behind our suggestions that you have this wording change in subsection 24. The substance of the ordinance isn't changed at all. The special use permit process is quasi-judicial in nature, and from experience, we think wording is really important when you're making a quasi-judicial decision. And the original language spoke of waivers and variances, and our thought was that a waiver has sort of a connotation. There's case law to the effect that councils don't have the authority to simply say the law doesn't apply to any individual or entity. And variances, of course, are typically granted by boards of adjustment for hardship. And special conditions is straight out of the general statutes relating to special use permit type zoning. So we thought it was appropriate to track the statutory language. And if you fine tune an approval of a townhouse project as an SUP project, our thinking is, our opinion is that a special condition can be added to the action that you take that either imposes additional conditions or makes more rigid certain conditions, adds to the conditions, or it can in fact relax conditions. So it achieves the same result. We just think special conditions is a better way to refer to this than variances and waivers.
Okay, do you have any other questions for Sherry?
So you would simply rename 24 waivers and variances to special.
Special conditions.
And I did hand in the one that Sherry gave me.
Okay.
They have it graded.
Okay, if not, do I hear a motion for us to go into the public hearing on this, on these ordinances?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone here that would like to address any issue to our ordinances? If not, do I hear a motion that we close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you so much, and so we will adopt these.
I do have one last question for Sherry.
Yeah.
You had said that you sent out the revision to Stocks Engineering, and I just wanted to know if there were any concerns with what was
I
put back in
haven't
here.
received.
Okay, thank you.
You need a motion to approve?
To approve the ordinance.
So made.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is public buildings ordinance. Sherry?
Okay, so this amendment is to actually allow public buildings, libraries, museums, art galleries, fire stations, ambulance services, and the like to be permitted as a use by right in the A1 zoning district instead of a special use permit. The planning board has made a recommendation that this be approved. And the thing with that is Randy and I have spoken to town attorney, and it was said that this special, if the town council have to approve, or you acting as a quasi judicial board, that it'll be a conflict of interest by you serving as a judge and a jury. Am I correct?
That's one of a number of problems.
Yeah, that's one of the number of problems. And so, the planning board, we're just changing that one zoning district, but, looking at the table that you have on page 170. So right now, they're all allowed in the A1, R30, R15, R10, R6M, R6, and R4, and MF as a special use permit. In the OI, B1, B2, and I1, they're permitted as a use by right. And looking at the other towns that I've researched, I wanted you to see the population and size and of those specific towns. For example, like town of Red Oak would be kind of mirroring what they have for the agricultural district. So the B means is by right, so it's allowed there. And as you see in their office, institution, and other business districts, they're also allowed as by, use by right. City of Oxford, their population 8,775, and they allow all their public safety stations all by as a use by right, but with standards, and usually their standards is the buffer and driveway width, in which anytime any new development comes, it goes before TRC, and our landscaping and buffer and screening requirements go into play with that. Anyway, that's for any new development that we have. City of Rocky Mount, their population 53,957, and their fire station and government operations, all of those are allowed there as a use by right. Town of Tarboro, population 10,569, and their public safety stations are allowed in all of their zoning districts as a use by right, well, permitted with standards. And their standards, same thing as their buffers and driveway width. Town of Zebulon, population 7974, and their fire EMS police station, they're allowed or permitted as a use by right in their R6, RMF residential zoning districts. Those are really your high density zoning districts, and they're also allowed in the commercial districts and mixed use as a permitted use. And lastly, town of Knightdale, population 19,576, and their public safety facilities are allowed in the open space preserve district as a use by right. And they have a rural residential that includes the agricultural and low density, and they also have general residential districts, mixed district and whatnot. They're allowed there as a use by right. So if this is approved, so it will, the special use in A1 would change to a use by right, and in section 111, the A1 will be deleted from the special use districts noted in 18-111-28B.
Any questions for Sherry? If not, do I hear a motion that we go into our public hearing on the amending of this ordinance?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone in the audience would like to address this issue?
Move to close.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
So, do I hear a motion that we adopt, this ordinance 2023-2012 at this time.
Move to approve.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
ordinance is adopted. The next item on our agenda is the MOU with Wesleyan University for reduced tuition for town employees.
So, Mayor and Council, you recall back in January, Wesleyan University reached out to our police and offered certificate, undergrad, and graduate program at a reduced rate for our police employees. Our police chief has followed up on that with the president of the university, and they've come back and made an offer for all town employees and their families to have reduced tuition for certificate, undergrad, and graduate programs that they offer. So attached is a memorandum of understanding to that effect.
Did everyone read that? Do I hear a motion to approve this?
So moved.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any other, do you have anything to say, Randy?
No, I don't have anything to report to the council at this time. Thank you.
On our agenda, we had to go into a closed session tonight. Is there a problem with deferring that to later on, or would you like to go in and do it tonight?
I'm fine with whenever.
I don't have a problem delaying it.
You don't have a problem doing it tonight?
Well, either way,
Okay.
whatever the council
Okay.
wants.
Well, let me close this, and then we'll go into our closed session. So if there are no other questions or agenda items, then do I hear a motion that we adjourn our town meeting for tonight? Council meeting. Second.
Mayor, as a point of order, you'll go into closed session.
Okay, oh well,
And then
that's right.
after, adjourn the
Just
meeting.
discuss it. Okay, do I hear a motion that we go into closed session?
So made.
Is that a second? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.